Hello everybody, so we've got another live today. So I'm actually going live today with my friend Simon Squibb. So I really can't wait to bring him up on this live tonight because he's got an amazing story and I'm sure he'll be able to share some words of wisdom that's going to help many of us on this live tonight. Here it is, here's Simon. So just going to bring Simon up and we're going to get a conversation flowing tonight. So yeah, guys, thanks for joining as well. Just going to invite him up if I can. Just bear with me, people. Here he comes. Thanks everybody for joining as well. Hopefully he's just coming now. Here he is, Simon.
Hey, how you going?
How you doing, my friend?
Very good. Yeah, it's another wonderful day in England, isn't it?
Yeah, I know, right? Cool. I don't know what's going on with the weather. Like earlier, Simon, I looked out the window here, and it was cloudy, dark, horrible, and then the sunshine come out, and then it started snowing, and then the sun come out again. But it's crazy, right? But
We're lucky, right? We got four seasons in one day. You know, who gets that?
well, you got to wear layers, right? That's what I can see you're doing, Simon.
I am. I'm always wearing layers in England.
So Simon, thank you so much for being here. So we got a few people coming up on in the room now at the moment on the live with us. So the reason why I wanted to bring you, Simon, here today is because I've known you sort of since my journey really at the start of 2020 is my real journey when I sort of started this social media journey because I didn't really have any Instagram back then. Um, and the only reason I downloaded it was after, say, splitting up with my ex-partner, and I wanted to connect with people. So I sort of saw you on here on Instagram and on TikTok as well, and on Clubhouse, obviously. And before that, I actually got onto Clubhouse. I was messaging you, Simon, because you was posting a lot about Clubhouse. And I remember I messaged you and asked for an invite because at that moment in time, it was invite only. So you really was the sort of catalyst for my whole journey, in all honesty, because if I didn't know about Clubhouse because of you, I would have never say embarked on this journey at all. So it was you that say guided me to reach out to the Facebook group, which I did, and I managed to get an invite, and the rest is history, I guess. So yeah, Simon, the reason why I'm bringing you here today is to obviously ask a few questions and get you to share a bit about your journey to help, say, my audience, and I know some of your audience too, which are sort of my age as well. Because in all honesty, when I sort of started just before I started my journey, I was quite desperate. In all honesty, I was asking all of the wrong questions to all of the wrong people, and these were people that were say on a total opposite journey to the journey that I was potentially on. So obviously I know your journey, I've heard you speak and I really am inspired and I'm sure so many other people are inspired by you as well. So Simon, if you could you just share sort of a brief overview of who you are and sort of what your journey's been? Maybe talk to us about life or what life looked like in your 20s. What were some of the say struggles and what did you have to do in order to get you to where you are today?
Yeah, well, first of all, Ryan, I have been following your journey, I've enjoyed your viewpoint on the world. I kind of describe you as someone that's woken up, you know, like seeing the potential of yourself and the world for that matter. And so, thanks for inviting me to come and chat. Um, I have a story that is both simple and complicated. I left home at 15 years old through no choice of my own and was forced into entrepreneurship basically because I couldn't get a job because I didn't have a national insurance card when I was kicked out of home. And so that in England you can't get a job without a national insurance card. So for the first time in my life, I woke up my entrepreneurial muscle in my head and had no choice but to start a business and frankly never looked back. Never really wanted to work for anyone else again once I'd realized that you could take something that's in your head and make it real. And I was homeless for a little while and then got on my feet, started a business. It did really well and then it failed, but I learned so much, and that entrepreneur muscle in my brain was alive. I was awake, and then I basically spent the rest of my 15, 20 years after that building businesses, building alliances, building and learning what purpose meant in a business, learning to find my purpose. And eventually at 40 years old, I sold my last company, Fluid, which was Asia's largest creative agency, to PricewaterhouseCoopers. And when I sold it to PwC, it was the first time I basically I never needed to worry about money again in my whole life. And it was quite a crazy feeling, because I had worried about money since the age of 15. And so suddenly I was financially free. My I guess belief in myself was complete. You know, I'd come from nothing to something, and I had this incredible experience of living in Hong Kong, living in Singapore, living in Beijing and Shanghai and Thailand and Bali, all from a small town in England where I started out. So I kind of took a few years off, and to kind of recalibrate, recharge, rethink who I am and what I wanted. And I've come out the gate with a purpose, which is to help 10 million people start and grow a business. And that has come from a lot of education and understanding where the world's going. I'm both positive about technology, but also a bit nervous about how it's going to disrupt even the most advanced jobs. I've seen technology, for example, that's going to replace doctors. So if you're training to be a doctor right now, there's a chance you won't have a job when you come out the other end. If you're a driver of a lorry or a car, 100% 10 years from now, those jobs are gone. And so I am an advocate of technology, but I believe we've got to prepare for the time it disrupts traditional working patterns for a human. And so a lot of people say, well, don't worry, because this has happened before. Robots came into the newspaper room and replaced car manufacturing, and we found new jobs, which is true, but we found new jobs because we planned for it. And I feel like now we aren't planning for it in the same way, because not everyone sees what's about to happen and believe that things will carry on as normal. We'll never have another war. Well, look what's happened today. These things happen. So we've got to prepare for, frankly, the inevitable, which is, history repeats itself, and we're about to get replaced in many, many jobs. So we need to retool. So I believe retooling people involves giving them the ability to be their own boss, to create a business that doesn't necessarily have to be Instagram. It can be a business that you enjoy, something that you find purpose in, something that, yes, maybe it pays the bills, maybe it's a top up to universal basic income, but it's going to give you a feeling of purpose, give you a reason to jump out of bed every day and enjoy what you do. And so I'm on a mission to help 10 million people start and grow a business. And a big part of our kind of, I guess, our pledge is that we will never charge people for help. So most of the time, people that are offering you help are trying to get a course fee out of you. And not that there's necessarily anything wrong with that, but we feel that that model generally leaves a lot of people behind. It doesn't give access to all. And in reality, I think I'm trying to go back to that 15-year-old me and help. I couldn't afford a coach back then. I didn't know what I didn't know. I didn't know to ask. I didn't know any entrepreneurs to ask. I didn't understand what questions to ask. And so I'm kind of helping that 15-year-old me, but also I feel like 15-year-old me had a bad education. The education system was teaching me to work in a factory for someone else. It was teaching me risk is bad. It was teaching me that working for someone else was safer than working for myself. And that is a lie. I now know that to be a lie. It is not easier or safer to work for someone else. So I am, in a way, trying to build something called the Purposeful Project that in the end will fix our education system and give people who go through an education a proper opportunity to create their own destiny, to create the future they want. And it might be they still work with someone else, but at least they have informed consent. They have the knowledge to make an informed decision, not get a job because they've got debt, because they've got to get a job and do a job they hate, which 99% of people that I meet hate their job. So I really believe in giving people that informed consent to make a decision and have the tools to start a business if they want, because I believe everybody is an entrepreneur if they wish. No one's born anything, not a doctor, not a lawyer. There's many different types of doctors, there's many different types of lawyers, there's many different types of entrepreneurs, but you can be one if you want, and you don't need to wait in the line to get a job. You can create one for yourself.
Simon, thank you so much for sharing that with us. So detailed as well. And what I want to say about there really is, you would say that 15-year-old boy almost forced into that situation where you had to say fend for yourself. But I honestly believe that sometimes your most profound periods of pain can also turn out to be your greatest gifts of growth. And also, pains can sometimes present purpose. So for you, it sounded like that pain that you went through, which you just mentioned there, you want to use that pain as you felt as that 15-year-old child, in all honesty, use it now as a, say, adult, an experienced adult that's gone through the say, test of life, to use what you know now to then help that, say, 15-year-old version of yourself and obviously everybody else around the world. So, yeah, like what stood out there as well about so many people feel like their purpose should be, let's say, a business of their own. But in my eyes, I actually wrote about this earlier. Purpose doesn't mean, say, working for yourself. Like, you could be working for somebody else, I believe, and still find purpose or feel purpose. Like, what are your thoughts on that, Simon?
Yeah, absolutely. Of course. I think, and frankly, you can work for yourself and not feel purpose. I think the key is being aware of this concept of purpose, and make sure that you're not doing something because you feel peer pressure, or not doing something because you feel society has suggested you should. And I do believe we all are here for a reason. And sometimes I use the example that I know someone who works for NASA, and you can say that, you know, NASA has quite a big purpose. I honestly think this individual has the ability to solve some of the world's most complicated problems, but he's too busy working at NASA. And so sometimes, and when I say to him, you know, why don't you use this brilliant brain of yours to solve important problems that are in the world? He says, I've got a mortgage to pay. You know, so I think sometimes people can be working at a purposeful business, but not necessarily doing what they were here to do. And I worry in today's society that people are getting distracted by, you know, fancy houses and flash cars and, you know, what the neighbor has, as opposed to thinking internally about what it is they're meant to be doing with their life. And but I agree with you. You know, you can work for someone else, and I like to think my colleagues who work with me, I don't say they work for me, they work with me, and they're here with me because they believe in the purpose that I believe in, and they believe in that purpose for different reasons, but they're on the journey with me. So we have a shared common purpose, even though they work for me, you could say technically. I feel like that makes sense, and that's why whenever I bring anybody in to the organization, it's not necessarily are they the best at that job in the world, but do they care the most about our purpose is what matters. And so, yeah, you can definitely work for someone else to have purpose. I just don't want people to work somewhere and have no purpose. I think that they're missing something important in their lives if that's the case.
Yeah, look, I totally agree there, Simon. And I feel like when people aren't working with purpose, or they're not living a purposeful life in, say, in a career, they're not going to put in their 100%. So not only is it bad, like air quote, bad for that individual, because they're not, say, living up to their true potential and going after what they really want in life, but it's also bad again for the employer, because they would rather have someone there that wants to be there and wants to serve that overall, say, mission as well. So yeah, it's so important to, say, live a life with purpose and work with purpose as well. So Simon, I want to get onto some of the questions, if it's okay, because I've got a few questions that I wanted to ask you. So
Sure.
the first one is, what is the best piece of advice that you have ever received, and why?
So I think it's an interesting question, because there's a few different elements. I I've been given lots of advice in my life, and each of them bring a different elements. So some practical, some spiritual. But I was once told, Simon, buy time, don't sell time. And initially, even in my own businesses, I had an agency business. We were selling time, and I never really understood initially what that meant. But over the years, I've discovered that it is really silly to be selling time. Time is the most valuable thing we've got. So I think I learned to rethink not only my own businesses but how I operated, and through a piece of advice like that. Equally, I'm a self-taught marketing and salesperson, but along the way, I've been given some good advice. So, for example, on sales, I was once told that every single sale is basically following the same process, and it's these 3 steps. The first is, if you want to win work from someone, get to know the person you're selling to, like basically get to like each other. The second step is establishing that you need each other. And most people don't do these first 2 steps. Most people just go straight in with, this is what I've got to sell, and this is what I'm doing. Do you want it? They don't get to know the person, and they don't get to build this concept that they need each other. So you need each other, and you like each other. If you get those 2 right and everyone skips it, then the third element, which is what you're selling and the price, gets easily sorted. But most people lead with that third bit, like, this is what I'm selling, and this is why you need it, as opposed to understanding the person they're selling to. So I've had, advice like that on a practical level and the spiritual level, and I think that ultimately my own personal self-educated advice has been that recognize that luck plays a part in life, and in fact work hard to make luck happen, and believe that, by the way, working hard does not equal luck. The harder you work, the luckier you get is not true. Luck is far more complicated, as I can explain about that. But recognize luck and stay humble. Really, like, I've been down and I've been up. Right now I'm up, but I'm still very much grateful for what I have, and I will never judge others, and that's why I'm on a mission to make sure I help those that don't have money, and not just look after those that do. So I think I've had so much advice over my career, and I personally built my own philosophy around certain things. But I think ultimately, sometimes you've got to look at, when you get advice from people, the most important thing, I think, and probably the final takeaway I'll give people on this question you're asking is, if you're going to take advice from people, probably look at the person and their life and say to yourself, do I want their life? If you take their advice, you'll probably end up having their life. So just be careful with any advice you get, including mine. Maybe you don't want my life. So take advice from those whose life you aspire to be or want. I'm quite conscious, for example, not to listen too often to Elon Musk, because I actually wouldn't want his life. He's divorced. He's not happy in his relationships. He has a workaholic approach to life. So I don't always take Elon Musk's advice, even though I admire him as an entrepreneur. I wouldn't want his life. And so same with Boris Johnson. I wouldn't want his life. And so I'm not inclined to take his advice. So I think that's important.
Yeah, thanks again, Simon. And yeah, about the luck side of it, like, I feel like we all create our own luck by putting ourselves at the center of discomfort, by putting yourself in those places where other people don't really want to go, like, because they're not going there for a certain reason. But if you go there, I'm not saying anywhere dangerous at all, but if you go to that place where others aren't willing to go, you're more likely to receive or gain something that others won't get themselves. And about the advice side of it, yeah, like, I totally agree with you. Like, I used to say this to myself all of the time: don't ever take advice from somebody that you wouldn't happily trade places with. But however, I'm open-minded as well, so I don't say that's the only piece of advice that I'm going to say to myself, because I just want you to think about this. Just imagine if you, say, met a homeless person and they said, look, I had 10 businesses, I had multi-millions of pounds, but look, I'm living on the street. don't do this, and they tell you exactly why you shouldn't do what he done to get him in that position, or them, her, they, and you would surely listen to that advice if you didn't want to be in that place. So that's how I see it as well about taking advice. But Simon, on the flip side to that, what, say, one piece of advice have you received that's, say, your worst piece of advice that you received and acted on, and what was the result?
So in my early career, when I was maybe 23, 24, by this time I was managing a lot of people working for me under my agency business, and I struggled initially managing large teams. And I remember I was in Hong Kong running my company there, and someone very successful invited me for lunch, and during this lunch I told them how hard I was finding it to manage people. And this person said to me, Simon, this is how you manage people. He said, you basically just push people. You push people to work so hard that they don't have time to quit, find another job, or think about anything other than getting their job done. And eventually they'll burn out and they'll move on, and you replace them. And there was a moment where I thought, hold on, I'm not an experienced manager of people. At this point, I had been self-employed for quite a long time, but that's not the same as experienced managing lots of people. And there was a moment there where I thought, well, this person's successful. They maybe know something I don't. And I attempted for about 2 weeks to listen to their advice. And I started being a lot tougher with people, started pushing them a little harder. And it just didn't feel right. And so what I recognized was that although that might have been good management advice, and it might have been why that person was successful, that was their personality as well. That they were able to live that way and sleep at night with that way of working. I was not. So I think it sometimes there can be like best practice in business, what people say you should do and how they made it, but that won't necessarily fit with your personality type. So I went the other way. I gave people flexi time, unlimited holiday, and although frankly quite often I did get taken advantage of, what I found was I was happier, and I enjoyed my work more, and I tended to end up with people in the company that did appreciate that approach. And although it took me a lot longer to be as successful as the person I just referenced, when I got there, I was happier. And so I think sometimes, like that was bad advice that I was given, to your point, your question. And I initially tried to action it. I probably could have turned myself to stone and just pushed people. I probably could have changed my inner core, killed off that natural need to have fun, which is how I saw it, to basically push people to work for me harder, and maybe I would have been richer quicker. But I reflect now on how I got where I am today, and I appreciate the friendships I've made along the way. A lot of the people that worked for me are now my friends, and those things I value more than any amount of money I could have made. So it is enjoying the journey. That was not what this person advised me, and so not only was it bad advice for my personality type, I think generally people do forget to how you treat people on the way up could be how you're treated on the way down, right?
Yeah, that's so true, and it's about just staying true to yourself. Like you said, Simon, that wasn't you. Like someone was almost trying to mold you into someone who you wasn't. Like in life, you can't tell or force anybody to do anything, right? Like we've all heard of this quote: "You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink." But I've added a part to that myself, which says, however, you can show the horse the benefits of drinking that water by drinking it yourself on a daily basis. So you need to be the change that you want to see in the world. So if you want somebody to work hard, but they don't want to do it. You're never going to say force them to do anything. But if you show them the benefits of, say, putting the effort in, whether that's in a business or it could be in any area of life, but you just show up and you do the work, and the right people will be attracted to you for doing that as well. So yeah, you can't force anybody to do anything, and yeah, just be yourself, because like you mentioned there about you could have potentially got rich quicker, but I think Tony Robbins said this one, and it said something like, getting rich and not enjoying the process is the ultimate fail. Because like we know, the reward is the journey and not the destination. Like so many people think, I will be happy when I've achieved this or I've got this. But no, if you're not happy going there, I very much doubt you're going to be happy when you get it. Because if you're not happy for the things in your life at the moment, why the fuck are you going to be happy with more of what you've already got? Like, you're not going to be more happy in my eyes. So I mentioned there actually a moment ago about, say, unlearning things. Like, people try to force their, say, beliefs onto us or their truths onto us. So the next question then would be, look, so what is the main thing that you, say, had to unlearn throughout, say, it could be childhood programming or growing up, say, in your younger years? What was the main thing that you had to unlearn rather than learn?
So many things. I mean, the school system teaches you not to get a D, right? Not to fail. And we all know A students end up working for D students, and almost, the school system teaches you that the failure is bad, and it's not. Failure is brilliant. I would not be successful today if I hadn't failed many times when I was younger. So, that's one thing. I think the education system teaches you so many things that are not right. So, for example, you don't want to stick your head up and get noticed, which is ironic in the social media era now, that everyone wants to get noticed. But for some reason, there's almost like, don't speak up, don't have an opinion, don't stand out. And so, school almost tries to make everybody the same. And, and then frankly, as I came up through the ranks, I guess, in business, I feel like initially I believed that you had to stand on other people to get ahead, and don't take it personally type of approach, and it's just business, all this crap that you hear. And I do take it personally. I don't want to stand on other people to get ahead. Working hard does not lead to success. Debt is not good. Good debt kills people. Borrow money is the best way, leverage, all of these things that you're almost taught as if they're gospel. I'm permanently trying to not let the system brainwash me, even now, into believing that a certain way of living will make me happier. Like owning more cars, more houses, more this, more that, and why don't I leverage money and make more money instead of like just focusing in on what I know to be true. And so, yeah, I think, I've learned to unlearn so much. And even now, thanks to the, complete onslaught of media, I'm still doing it. I'm still resisting the subconscious tricks, I guess, of brands and institutions and governments, frankly, and trying to not let them teach me that war will ever be good. War will never be good. I will never accept that a war is justified. I don't care. An eye for an eye does not work. And I will never accept that it's a good idea to go to war. And I think equally, less political on that sort of subject, I will never believe that debt is a good thing. Good debt is such a, someone says it to me every single day that there's good debt. There isn't. There isn't. It's all designed to trick you into a system that stops you being free to do what you love. And even I have to remind myself of that as people permanently offer me massive leverage, as if I'm an idiot for not taking it, and so, yeah, I'm always not only training the system trying to train me, I'm always trying to stay completely aware of, frankly, the brainwashing that the system is trying to to make me feel. And debt's a good one to pick on, because I just, every single advert on TV, every single thing that comes to the post, every single financial advisor I speak to tells me to leverage up. And you know, I have to keep saying why. Oh, then you can make more money. Why? Well, then you can leverage even more. Why? Then you'll have more assets. Why? You know, like a 5-year-old, my 5-year-old says this to me, or the 4-year-old says this to me all the time. Why? We have to, as humans, keep asking that, because sometimes people's motivations are, well, I get more commission if you do that, Simon. You know, that's the truth, right? Is it? So anyway, to answer your question, I think, you know, I've been permanently unlearning what the education system tried to do to me. Even my own parents kind of misunderstood that working hard was the answer to success. So I'm permanently reminding myself that's not the case, and trying to do the same for others.
Yeah, Simon, thanks again for that. And what I want to talk about there is, because you mentioned this at the start as well, about the education system. It almost molds us as individuals into workers. Like you said this at the start, and throughout the education system, we get punished for failing, right? You fail an exam or a test, you get punished. You have to do homework or after school and all that sort of stuff. But the reality is, in the real world, failing is just a part of success. Like, it's the essential stepping stones on the way to success. It's just success in progress, really. Because every failure, if you choose, you can learn from that. And the greatest of life lessons are in those failures as well. But then also, like you mentioned as well, Simon, just moving on from that, was about the society as well. Like, society almost brainwashes us into believing that we need to buy these assets, these golden pots of homes. And I know you're a big one on buying homes and mortgages, etc. And yeah, like many of us, me included, were sort of brainwashed to believe that owning your own home is like the ultimate goal in life. And if you had, say, a fancy car on finance and a big old TV on the wall, like you're doing so well for yourself. But from my own experience, I had that, and I didn't feel any better than I was before owning that stuff. So it got to a point where the things I owned end up owning me, because I was trapped in that situation where I couldn't, or I didn't feel like I could, say, move job, because I needed that monthly safety net of an income coming in each month to pay for the mortgage that was, say, on the edge of my, say, limit, because I was, say, had a car to pay for, I had bills to pay for, I had holidays that was constantly going on to pay for as well.
Yeah. And the irony, that safe job is probably the most unsafe thing you could ever have. See, that's the irony, and that's what I'm talking about. Everyone thinks a safe job, you know, like working for Northern Rock, you know, safe job, right? The infrastructure is always teaching you to basically do the safe thing, but in reality, life is about not doing the safe thing. That's where the fun is.
Yeah, no, I like that. And yeah, like, with the safe bet in life, like the safe bet really, and you mentioned it there about the fun, like the safe bet, taking the safe bet in life is robbing you from enjoying this life experience and really living it to its fullest and getting the most out of it, but enjoying the journey, having fun along the journey. And about the whole job or the career side of it, taking that safe career, like a safety job, monthly income, etc. What's stopping, say, your boss from saying, right, that role doesn't exist anymore, you're gone, there's 1 month's notice, you're off, and then you got to find something else anyway. So that isn't really a safe job. The safest job that I found, from, say, learning from people like yourself and reading books, listening to thousands of hours of podcasts, the safest job that you could ever have is working for yourself.
Totally. Lindsay just said on here, the best thing in life, in my opinion, costs absolutely the least. Can't beat the euphoria from a sunrise. So true, so true. And nice to hear from you, Lindsay. I tell you, the thing I remember, I did a TikTok that went viral, a couple of million views on it. And basically, it was a TikTok of me saying, you know, kind of, and I actually find this really hard to do this. People don't believe. I say I'm a multimillionaire. And I, you know, this is my day. and I basically pushed my son in the pram to his nursery, and then I was able to spend the day like hanging with him at the nursery. And then at the end of the time, I walked with him and got a baby chino, and watched trains go by. He would guess what trains were coming, and I said, that is my dream day. That's what it's like being a millionaire. And then someone said in a comment, I'm on welfare and I can do that. And I'm like, well, then if you are very, very rich, then, you are lucky. You are as lucky as me, and so, because actually it's so true what Lindsay just said, the things that are actually the most enjoyable, going for a walk like I did this evening with the sun setting, really don't cost anything. And spending time, talking to someone like you on here. Yes, we need a fancy phone. You could start to argue there's some cost, but generally, I'm not paying you. You're not paying me. We have the phone anyway. The Wi-Fi is already paid for. This moment costs nothing. And so, I think people need to look into that more. And instead of buying a house to make them happy, or buying a car to make them happy, just figure out what your day-to-day can look like that doesn't involve trying to buy happiness.
I mean, that's so important. In my eyes, I believe the ultimate goal in life is true happiness. So you as an individual, say that's listening to this, you need to determine what success looks like for you in your life. And for me, success for me is a feeling that comes as a byproduct from moving closer to a desired destination on a daily basis. So I could say that success for me is progress, and true happiness is progress. So Simon, just as we sort of have a few more questions to finish up on, the next question that I wanted to ask you is, what was the greatest lesson that you learned from your most painful life experience?
Just before I answer that question, there's a comment here. Jack here, who I don't know, just said, can't pay bills with enjoyment though. It's interesting, isn't it? Because I think sometimes we get a bit caught in a skeptical world that's made this kind of construct. Money is the first virtual reality item that we actually believe is real. And if I told everybody listening on here that they had £5 million in the bank, they'd feel happy for a minute until they realised they didn't have £5 million in the bank, and then maybe they'd be sad again. But how long can you hold that feeling that you actually have it? Because that will bring you happiness. And so people say you can't pay the bills. Well, sometimes you've created those bills. You've made things, you've created monthly costs. You've let the system beat you into paying monthly costs. And that's why I tell people, don't get caught by the system, because if you do have monthly bills to pay, then you often end up having to do something you don't enjoy to pay those bills. And then suddenly that statement becomes true that you just made there. But I think the other side, and the way you should look at things, is don't have monthly costs. Get them down to nothing. I lived in my office, and my office was on barter. I think people can say, oh, well, that's unique to you, son. Well, it's only because no one's told you this, maybe educated you on this, or explained this way of living. When you're young, you don't need a big fancy house. Maybe when you've got kids, you do. Things change later. But I do think people get a little caught in this, fun won't pay the bills. Well, fun will make you happy, and happy equals to you don't need lots of bills. You don't need lots of things, because you're enjoying what you do every day. And but anyway, going back to your
Simon, can I just go on the top of that as well? Because I've heard many people say this sort of thing too as well, and I just want to say thanks. I think it was Jack for that comment too. But so many people believe success is the key to happiness, but I believe it's the other way around. Is happiness is the key to success, and happiness is a choice. We choose to be happy at any moment in our life too. But as you mentioned, Simon, about the monthly outgoings, the best thing that anybody that's watching this back or listening now could do is take their bank statement each month, take your last month's bank statement, look at it, take a highlighter and just highlight the things that you couldn't survive without. Because so many things, I've done it myself, are on there that are just luxuries. And you could tick probably half of it off. So you could go from, let's say, spending £1,000 a month to £500. So then now you've got another £500 spare. What are you going to do with that extra £500 in your bank? So you need to sacrifice because it is about sacrifices. If you want to go through life and treat yourself every single day, every single weekend to these luxuries, it could be eating out each weekend, you're soon going to drain through your money. So if you don't sacrifice for what you want, then what you want becomes a sacrifice. So Simon, I hope you can remember the next question as well.
I can't.
No, right, I'm gonna go over it again. So I wanted to ask you, what was the greatest life lesson that you learned from your most painful life experience?
So I sadly lost my father when I was 15 years old. He had a heart attack right in front of me, and you know, even now it feels like yesterday when I think about that moment and watching him. I thought he was joking. You know, like he was having a heart attack in front of me. I thought he was joking, and so, you know, that was a very painful moment in my life. You know, 8 minutes after he told me he was having a heart attack, he was dead. And I still to this day, like, just remember the moment as he told me it, thinking, is he joking? You know, like, is it? You know, he was 56 years old. You know, like, it's just too young to die of a heart attack. But I remember, you know, going through this process once he died of, like, you know, how did this happen? How did someone so young, you could argue maybe 56 isn't that young, but it is young. How could someone this young die suddenly out of nowhere? And I think what was ironic is that my father had a lot of good debt. You know, this thing where everyone talks about good debt. And actually the stress of it killed him. He was so busy managing all this good debt, he didn't look after himself. He was too busy running around all the houses, collecting all the money, managing all the properties, with all this wonderful, wonderful good debt. And I think that, you know, the lesson I learned is that, again, thanks to my father, is two things. From that pain, I learned two things. One, when he left, he actually gave me a gift. He died just before Christmas, Christmas Eve to be exact. And his final gift to me really was, like, the ability to go off and fail, because as soon as he died, then my mother kicked me out of home, and then suddenly, you know, all the people around me that would have judged me for failing suddenly weren't there, and I could go and make things happen without judgment, and I was kind of given this gift of the freedom to fail. So that's one thing I got from the pain. The other thing I think I took from it was this whole idea that because society says something's good, it doesn't mean it's true, right? And so my father was a smart person who followed the system's narrative that good debt was a good thing, but it wasn't good for him. And so that's another thing I've taken. And just because even now, and I did a TikTok yesterday of 100,000 views on it already, a lot of negative comments on there about how debt is so freaking good. I know it's not for everybody. I'm not saying it's not good for some people. Some people have the ability to handle it. Some people want it. But I know a lot of people where good debt is bad. And my father was one of those people. I would probably be one of those people. And so I could probably be 10 times richer than I am today if I leveraged good debt, but there's a chance I might be dead, you know. And so I feel like my father gave me that gift of sight, that gift to see through the marketing and the infrastructure lies that are built by governments, for example. I mean, like right now, the government's saying everyone should go back to the office. That's why all these restrictions have been lifted. Coronavirus hasn't gone away, right? They're being lifted because they want all the Prets in England to stay in business. They want all the landlords that own all these expensive office buildings not to go out of business. They want you to use the public transport system, your money to get to work, your time to get to work. 8 hours sitting in front of a screen at home, or 8 hours sitting in front of a screen in the office makes no difference, right? And they say, oh, culture in the company, it's good to be there. We'll go for a walk together in a park somewhere. Don't need to go travel an hour a day to the work, there and back, be away from your family, be a bit waste resources of the planet. Why? Right? And my father gave me that gift. He gave me the gift to actually question this stuff, not as a conspiracy theorist, because I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm factual. There is no benefit for everyone going back to the office, other than to the landlords and to the prets of this world, the rich people running these businesses that want you to go back to the oldest system so that they stay in power, right? And that's who's, without being paranoid, that is who's sponsoring Boris Johnson. So they have a vested interest in keeping the status quo. And so I am able to see this. And again, it's not conspiracy theory, it's just factual based insight, right? And that's another gift my father gave to me.
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing that story about your father. And yeah, like as I mentioned earlier, Simon, like sometimes the most profound periods of pain can also turn out to be our greatest gifts of growth. And what really stood out for me there was you mentioned your father, say, sacrificed his health in order to, say, build this wealth. And there's a quote, and I think it says something like, so many people sacrifice their health to build wealth, but then it gets to a point where they're spending their wealth to try and buy back their health, and you can never buy it. Once it's gone, you can't buy it back. Yeah, there's some things you can do to, say, prolong it, but don't ever, say, sacrifice your physical and mental health trying to, say, create this wealth in, say, monetary terms, because I feel like it's something that many of us would regret. And like you mentioned there about your dad as well, like obviously the age that he was, it's not really an age at all. Yeah, obviously anyone can die at any age. Like me, I was on my deathbed at 18, but we want to live like as long as we possibly could, right? So anything that, say, may stop that from happening isn't really a good thing to do in my eyes. Simon, so I want to just finish this off now with the last question that I love to ask you. And I usually say, what one piece of advice would you, or knowing what you know now, what one piece of advice would you give to your 20-year-old self? But for you, it could even be your 15-year-old self. So, Simon, knowing what you know now, what one piece of advice would you give to your younger self?
Yeah, it's first of all, I wouldn't change anything about my life. So I'd be very careful with giving advice to my younger self, because I actually am really happy how things have turned out. I'm glad I'm awake. I'm glad that I'm aware. I'm glad that I'm doing the right thing today and helping other people without a catch. So I wouldn't want to change where I am now, but I'd probably be more spiritual about it and say, because I was in a lot of pain at 15, so I'd probably say that, the bad luck that you're having right now is just good luck in disguise. Luck is luck, bad luck or good luck. And sometimes it's just a matter of perspective and time. So I've had moments in my life where I think I've had really bad luck, and it turned out to be good luck in a strange twist. And even good luck, when I made a lot of money, actually for a little while was very happy, but then also felt a sense of loss because I no longer had the same drive for a while, So you think making lots of money is good luck, but plenty of lottery winners have gone completely insane. Like it hasn't made, wow, you won the lottery, what good luck. And then, they just don't have a good life. It's just a bad luck can be good luck. Having nothing, but then spending time with your family and knowing your priorities, and investing in the ones you love. Turns out having no money can be good luck if you can do that right. So I'd probably go back to my younger self and say, hey, it feels like you're having a lot of bad luck right now, right? You've lost your father, your mother's kicked you out. It sounds awful. And it's not easy, but it is actually going to ensure that one day you have the most amazing life. I have such love in my life. I've got a son I absolutely adore. I get to spend time with him. I've been with the same partner for 21 years. I'm very happy. And I get to hang out and speak to wonderful people like you, Ryan. So, I feel grateful. And so that bad luck, as awful as it was, right now, in this point in my life, I feel like I'm blessed. And I don't think I would be if I hadn't had bad luck.
Yeah, I love that. And Like, I personally believe there's, say, a positive which can be extracted from every single negative in life. Like, there's always a yin and a yang. There's always an opposite to whatever you're going through now, or whatever, say, may have come your way in your life. So, Simon, thanks so much for sharing that. And I just want to end this on, I say it's a quote that I made up a while back, actually, and it says, adversity can quite often turn out to be a blessing in disguise. And from my own experience, I've found that adversity is the prerequisite to growth, success, and happiness. I believe hidden at the very core of adversity is the key to progress and lifelong happiness. It isn't going to be easy to find this key, but once you have obtained it, it will unlock the barrier to your next level of life. So adversity can be a gift if we choose to let it be. So Simon, thanks so much for coming, my friend. I really appreciate you. We've had some amazing comments. We've had some people come through. So I'm sure this is going to impact so many young adults, or anyone really that watches this, because there was so much info in there and words of wisdom, lived experience. And that's the best certificate that you could ever get in life. So don't worry about all that education, all those certificates from school. The best certificate that you could ever receive is live life experience. So Simon, you've got plenty of that. So Simon, just before we end this, what can, say, somebody do to reach out, find out more about you, say connect with you, send you a message maybe, and just follow your journey?
Yeah, well, you can just follow me on Instagram, click through, and a lot of people message me on DMs. I do try to get back to people. I'm always better with voice clips than words. But, you know, if people want to connect through Instagram, of course, I do a lot of stuff on TikTok, and I've got my website, simonscribb.com. And, you know, if I can help you in any way, feel free to reach out. And yeah, connect on my lives. I do a live pretty much every day of some sort. So come and ask questions. Let me know how I can help you. And yeah, that's it really. But thank you for having me, Ryan.
Thanks so much, Simon. So if anyone wanted to, say, reach out, you got the info there. But Simon, if any of us, say, wanted to help you out, what could we do to help?
Just, I guess, you know, spend time figuring out who you are. Don't always listen to everybody else's advice, and try to find your purpose in life, because that will make the world a better place for my 4-year-old later if you do.
Amazing. So I know we're going to go now, but if some person was, say, watching this and they're thinking, I don't know where to even start to find my purpose, what one piece of advice would you say to get the ball rolling, Simon?
Well, the first question is just to keep asking yourself, you know, try to listen to your inner voice. Maybe ask yourself what problems you'd like to solve in the world, and then go and hang out with someone who's got purpose, who's working on something purposeful, because it's infectious.
Oh, it certainly is. And guys, if you haven't followed Simon already, follow Simon, follow the Purposeful Project, and yeah, just keep up to date with his lives. He is live, especially on TikTok. So jump over there, follow Simon. But Simon, thank you so much for coming, my friend. I
Pleasure.
really do appreciate you, and we'll catch up soon.
All right, Ryan, take it easy.
Thanks, Simon. Bye bye,
Thanks,
everyone.
bye.
Thank you for coming on.
Bye, everybody.